Poor girl fixes a car on the road. The owner turns out to be a CEO. Rain had fallen all morning, leaving the road wet and shining like a long, dark mirror. Cars rushed past in fast lines, throwing up dirty water. The sky was heavy and gray, and the air smelled of gasoline and wet dust. On the side of the road, near an old bus stop with a broken roof, a young girl walked carefully along the muddy edge. Her name was Lina. Her sneakers were thin and soaked. Her jeans had small tears at the knees, and her faded hoodie did not keep out the wind. A cheap backpack hung from one shoulder, almost empty, except for a small box of tools and a folded lunch in a plastic bag. Her hair, tied in a loose ponytail, was already wet from the rain that had slipped under the bus stop roof. Lina checked the time on her cracked phone screen and sighed. She had missed the earlier bus because she stayed behind to help an old neighbor carry groceries up 3 floors. Now she was late for her part-time shift at the small garage where she worked. They didn't pay much, but it was the only place that let a poor girl without a diploma touch cars. As one more bus roared past without stopping, Lina closed her eyes for a moment. "Please, just one good thing today," she whispered to herself. Then she heard it, a strange, rough sound from the road ahead. Not the normal, smooth sound of engines, but something broken, a sharp knocking, a metal cough. A black car, big and shiny, rolled slowly toward the bus stop. It looked expensive with dark windows and perfect paint, but it moved like it was in pain. Lina watched as it jerked forward, then stopped completely a few meters away from her. The engine tried to start again, made a loud choking sound, then died. Warning lights flashed red on the dashboard. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall in a dark suit and polished shoes that did not belong on a dirty roadside. His white shirt was open at the collar, and his tie hung loose. Even from a distance, Lina could see he was not like people from her neighborhood. His watch alone probably cost more than everything in her backpack. He stared at the car with tight lips, then ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Cars behind him honked as they changed lanes to pass. Someone shouted out of a window, angry at the delay. The man ignored them. He kicked one small stone on the road, then bent down to look at the front tire and decide anything, like he wanted to find the problem just by looking. Lina felt her fingers move toward the zipper of her backpack. She had seen this kind of car only in pictures and on the rare days when rich people brought them to the garage. It was a high-end German sedan, the kind her boss called a rolling computer. If it was stuck here, the tow truck would take hours, and the tow truck would be expensive. What would you do in this situation, the narrator might ask you now? Walk past and pretend you saw nothing, or listen to that small voice inside that says, "Maybe I can help." Lina looked at the man again. He took out his phone, put it to his ear, then pulled it away with an angry mutter. No signal, or maybe no answer. His jaw clenched. He seemed like the kind of person who was used to control, used to things working when he wanted them to. Her heart beat faster. She was just a poor girl in wet clothes and cheap shoes. He was clearly rich. Men like him did not listen to girls like her. But a broken engine was still a broken engine. She took a small breath, then another. "You fix cars," she told herself quietly. "You can at least look." Lina stepped off the curb and walked slowly toward the car, keeping her hands visible so she didn't seem like a threat. Water splashed under her feet. The man turned when he heard her. "Excuse me," Lina said, her voice soft but steady. "Your car, it sounds like the engine is flooding. Maybe the battery or fuel line. I I work at a garage. I could try to check it." The man stared at her. His eyes moved from her wet hair to her old hoodie, to the cheap backpack with a tool handle poking out. For a moment his face was hard to read, surprised, doubtful, maybe even offended. "You," he said, "you fix cars." His tone was not rude, but it had a sharp edge, like he expected to be disappointed. Lina felt her cheeks grow warm. "Yes, sir. I'm not a full mechanic yet, but I help at the shop. I've fixed engines like this before." "Sometimes," she swallowed. "You don't have to pay me. I just don't like seeing a car suffer." A small, quick smile touched her lips after that last line. It was shy but real. The man studied her for a long second. Rain tapped on the roof of the car, and another horn sounded far behind them. Finally, he stepped aside and nodded toward the front. "Fine," he said. "Show me." Lina walked to the hood and reached for the latch, her heart pounding. She had no idea that the man watching her with his expensive watch and tired eyes was not just any driver. He was the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city, and as the hood slowly lifted and the smell of hot metal and fuel rose into the cold air, Lena's life was about to change in a way she could not imagine. The hot smell of the engine rose into the cold air as Lina leaned over the open hood. Steam mixed with the faint scent of fuel. Wires, hoses, metal pipes. This was a language she understood better than rich people's faces. "Can you try to start it again?" she asked without looking up. The man got back into the car. The engine coughed, shook, then died. Lina listened carefully to the sound, her brow tightening. "Okay, stop," she said. Her fingers moved quickly, checking the battery cables, the air intake, the fuel rail. In the garage, she never touched luxury cars without permission, but here on the roadside, there was no boss to shout at her. Only this man and his silent, broken machine. Behind her, the rain slowed to a light drizzle. Cars passed by, splashing water, but she forgot about them. For a moment, her whole world was this engine. As she worked, memories pulled her backward to the tiny room she called home. Lina lived in a narrow alley behind an old market in a building that always smelled like fried oil and damp clothes. Her room was on the second floor, up a crooked staircase with a broken handrail. The door was thin and never closed quite right. When the wind blew, it rattled like old bones. Inside, there was just enough space for a narrow bed, a metal clothes rack, a small table, and a plastic chair. A single gas stove sat near the window with one pot and one pan stacked beside it. The paint on the walls had peeled off in long strips, showing gray concrete underneath. At night, she could hear rats fighting above the ceiling. But the thing that worried her most was not the rats or the cracks. It was the medicine bottle on the table. Her mother, Mai, lay on the bed most days. She had once been a strong woman who cleaned offices and carried heavy buckets up and down stairs. Now her legs were weak and her chest hurt when she walked too far. The doctor had said many long words Lina did not fully understand. What she did understand was this: without medicine, her mother's condition would get worse. "Good morning," Mama Lina said every day, even when she herself was tired from a late shift. That morning before the car broke down had been the same. She had woken before sunrise to the sound of rain on the thin roof. The air was cold and water dripped from a small crack near the window. Lina rolled off the bed and pulled the blanket up around her mother's shoulders. "Did you sleep?" she asked softly. "A little," her mother answered, her voice weak but warm. "You should have slept more. You came home so late." "I'm fine," Lina said. It was her usual answer. Her eyes were puffy, but she smiled anyway. "I'll make tea." She boiled water and put 2 cheap tea bags into chipped cups. The gas flame flickered in the dim room. On the table next to the tea, the medicine bottle stared at her like a small, silent judge. She picked it up, shook it gently. Only a few pills remained. "We have enough for 3 days," she said mostly to herself. Her mother heard anyway. "Lina," she whispered, "you don't have to keep doing extra shifts. Maybe I can find light work." "No," Lina said quickly, almost sharply. Then she softened her voice. "You're not going back to work." The doctor said, "No, I can handle it." Her mother looked at her with wet eyes. "You already handle too much." Lina forced a playful smile. "You raised a strong daughter, remember, I'll fix it. I always fix things." She tried to sound confident, but inside fear pressed on her chest like a heavy hand. Rent was due in 5 days. The garage paid her late sometimes. The landlord was not a patient man. Later that morning, she had gone out into the alley, closing the door gently so her mother could rest. The rain had turned the ground into a dirty, shining river. Children ran barefoot through puddles. A neighbor, Mrs. Huang, stood under an umbrella, with a heavy plastic bag of vegetables. "Lina, dear," the old woman called, "can you help me? These steps are trying to kill me." Lina took the bag from her without thinking. It was heavy, full of potatoes and onions. "You should buy less," Lina said, smiling. "Your knees are not 20 anymore." "Neither are yours with all this work," the woman replied, but she laughed. "How is your mother today?" "Still tired," Lina said quietly. "But she's fighting?" "You're a good girl," the neighbor said. "God sees." Lina didn't know if God watched her small alley, but the words warmed her for a moment. She carried the groceries up 3 flights of stairs, waited while the old woman found her keys and made sure she went inside safely. Only then did Lina rush out to the bus stop, already late, her shoes soaking in the rain. She could have walked away from the old woman and caught her bus. But Lena's heart never allowed that. Even when she had little, she always found something to give time a hand, a smile. Now back on the roadside, that same heart made her stand in the rain under the hood of a stranger's car. She found a loose connection near the battery and a wet sensor that probably caused the engine trouble. It was a fancy system, more complicated than the old cars at the garage, but the basics were still the same. She wiped off the sensor carefully with a dry cloth from her backpack and tightened the connections with a small wrench. "Try now," she said, stepping back. The man sat behind the wheel again and turned the key. The engine turned over, coughed once, then started with a low, powerful hum. The warning lights on the dashboard slowly faded away. Lina let out the breath she had been holding. A small, proud smile spread across her face before she could stop it. The man got out and closed the door. He listened to the engine for a moment, then walked around to join her at the front. The rain had almost stopped now, and a weak light pushed through the clouds. "What did you do?" he asked. "Just cleaned a sensor and tightened a cable," Lina said. "Sometimes water and dirt can confuse these systems. It should run fine now, but maybe you should have a full check soon." He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You know this car model?" he asked. "We don't see many like it at the garage," Lina said. "But engines all talk in their own way. If you listen, you learn." His lips twitched, almost a smile. "You talk about engines like they are people. Sometimes they are easier than people," she answered honestly. For the first time, he laughed, a short, surprised sound. It made his face softer, less cold. "How much do I owe you?" he asked, reaching for his wallet. Lina shook her head. "Nothing, sir. You were stuck, that's all. Someone helped my mother once when we were stuck. I'm just returning that." He stared at her, his wallet still in his hand. Rich people were used to paying for everything. He did not seem used to free help, especially from a wet, tired girl in a cheap hoodie. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lina." "Where do you work, Lina?" "At Hugh's garage near the old station," she said. "I clean, change oil, sometimes help with repairs." He pulled out a slim card holder and took a white card from it. It was simple. No colors, no pictures, just a name, a company, a phone number. He held it out to her. "If you ever need anything," he said slowly, "call this number." She hesitated, then took the card with careful fingers as if it might break. She read the name printed in clean black letters. "Daniel Tran," she whispered. Underneath it said, CEO, Tran Global Motors. Her mouth went slightly open. She didn't fully understand how big that was, but she knew CEO meant someone very important. He saw the shock on her face. "Yes," he said quietly. "I run a company, cars and logistics. Maybe we will talk again." Lina slipped the card into her backpack, where it rested next to her small box of tools and her almost empty lunch. She had no idea that this simple piece of white card given on a wet roadside after a broken engine was the first thin bridge between her small, crowded room and a world she had never imagined. As Daniel closed the hood and walked back to his car, Lina stood by the bus stop watching the black sedan pull away smoothly into the traffic, its engine now healthy and strong. She did not know it yet, but their lives were already gently turning toward each other, like two roads that would soon cross in a way neither of them could escape. Daniel drove in silence after leaving the roadside, his fingers tight around the steering wheel. The engine hummed steadily now, but his thoughts were anything but calm. Rain had faded into a thin mist on the windshield, yet his mind remained clouded. A poor girl, fixing his car. It felt unreal, but the engine worked because of her. He couldn't deny that. He replayed her face in his head, wet hair stuck to her cheek, worn hoodie-tired eyes, and hands that moved with a strange mix of confidence and kindness. She didn't ask for money. She didn't even want thanks. She just breathed life back into a machine he couldn't fix himself. And she reminded him of someone. His chest tightened painfully. Daniel Tran, CEO of Tran Global Motors, was a name people recognized anywhere in the city. He owned the largest chain of auto import centers in the region. He had built 3 factories, dozens of warehouses, and an entire electric vehicle line. Newspapers called him the Iron Mind. Investors admired his sharp decisions. His employees feared his anger. Competitors envied his success. But no one outside his closest circle knew what he carried inside. Behind the thick glass walls of his company's headquarters, behind tailored suits and expensive watches, Daniel lived with a grief that never left his side. His wife Hannah had died 3 years earlier. No amount of money doctors or specialists had been able to save her. A sudden illness had taken her within months. One day she was laughing with him in their garden, watering pink flowers she loved. And soon after, she lay still in a hospital bed, her hand cold in his. Daniel changed after that. He became harder, quieter, angrier at small things. He slept little and worked too much. He built new factories just to stay busy. He hired assistants only to push them away later. People whispered that he had turned cold. Some said he had no heart left. But there was one person who knew better. His daughter. When Daniel reached the company tower, the automatic doors opened smoothly. Marble floors shone under bright lights. Employees stepped aside quickly, booing slightly. "Good morning, sir," a manager said. Daniel only nodded. His personal assistant, Rachel, hurried behind him with a tablet. "You have 3 meetings today, sir. The investors want updates on the new SUV model. Also, the PR team needs your approval for later," he said, entering the elevator. Rachel hesitated, then stayed quiet. Everyone knew not to push Daniel too early in the day. The elevator rose to the top floor. When the doors opened, everything changed. The large office was silent, but the side door to a smaller room was open. A soft, calm voice floated out. Daddy Daniel's face softened instantly, like a switch flipping inside him. A little girl sat on the floor of the playroom, coloring with red crayons. Her hair was in 2 messy ponytails. A small pink backpack leaned against her chair. Her name was Emma, 6 years old. His whole world. She looked up with bright eyes that were so much like Hannah's that Daniel's heart always squeezed when he saw her. "You came early," Emma said, standing up with excitement. Daniel knelt and opened his arms. Emma rushed into them, hugging him tightly. "I missed you," she said. "I missed you too," he whispered into her hair. Emma stepped back and studied him. "You look tired again." "I'm fine," Daniel said with a soft smile. "Where's Miss Julia?" "She went to get juice. I was drawing a car." Emma held up a picture, a big car with round wheels. "Is it like yours?" Daniel truly smiled this time. "Much better than mine." Emma giggled. She was the only light left in his life, the only part of Hannah he could still hold. But being a single father was not easy, especially when grief followed him everywhere like a shadow. "Daddy," Emma said, her small voice turning curious, "why are your pants wet?" He blinked. It was from the rain, and from kneeling beside Lina's car. He hadn't even noticed. "I had a little car trouble," he said. Emma gasped. "Your car was sick a bit. Did you fix it?" "No," Daniel said slowly. "Someone helped me. A mechanic." He hesitated. "A girl." Emma tilted her head. "A nice girl." "Yes." His voice softened, a very kind one. He didn't know why he said it like that, but he felt it. Emma sat cross-legged and returned to her drawing. Mom always said nice people come when you least expect. Like surprise angels. Daniel's heart tightened. Yes, she did say that. He looked out the window, the city shining beneath him. He had everything, power, money, status, but the one thing he wanted most, a happy and complete family, had been taken from him. That was why he worked so hard, why he didn't trust easily, why he protected Emma like she was glass. Daniel stood up. I'll be back after my meeting, sweetheart. Okay, don't work too much, Emma said, wagging her small finger. He kissed her forehead and walked out. But even as he stepped into the meeting room, even as charts and graphs flashed on the screen, his thoughts drifted back to the girl on the roadside. Her hands and her voice, her honesty. A poor girl fixing a CEO's car in the rain and asking for nothing. Later that afternoon, Daniel's chief engineer, Min, brought a report on upcoming models. Daniel pretended to read it, but his mind was elsewhere. Sir, Min asked, you seem distracted. Daniel closed the folder. Tell me something. Yes, sir. How common is it for untrained workers to fix high-end engines on the road? Min blinked. Untrained, almost impossible. And if a young girl could, then she must be talented, Min said. Very talented. Daniel leaned back, tapping his fingers on the desk. Talented, honest, brave enough to approach a stranger. And she had saved him hours of trouble. What kind of life did she live? Why did she carry tools in her backpack? Why did she look so tired? Why did she help him without expecting a single coin? A question formed quietly in his mind. Who was she really? He didn't know that the answer was already moving toward him. That mile-long space between the tower of glass and Lina's tiny room would soon close into nothing because destiny was pushing them toward a moment that neither of them could avoid. That evening, as the sun fell and the city lights glowed, Daniel received a call from the garage where Lina worked. A quiet, almost worried voice on the phone said, Sir, we think you should come here. Daniel froze. Something had happened at the garage, and the first person he thought of was her, the girl with wet hair and kind hands, Lina. And that was how their paths were about to collide again in a dramatic way he never saw coming. By the time Daniel reached High's garage, the sky had already turned deep blue. The weak street lights flickered, and the old metal sign above the shop buzzed as if it could die any moment. His black sedan rolled to a smooth stop, its headlights cutting across piles of old tires and oily pavement. He stepped out quickly. The smell of greased gasoline and damp cement filled the air. Inside, voices argued. Daniel pushed open the sliding door. Lina stood near a workbench, her small frame tense, her hands shaking slightly. The garage owner, Hui, a heavy man with a round stomach and rough expression, was shouting at another customer. The customer, a tall man in a leather jacket, pointed angrily at his car. This girl broke my fuel pump, the man shouted. I did not, Lina cried, her voice trembling, but firm. It was already cracked. I told you it was unsafe. You're a liar, the customer barked, stepping toward her. Lina took a nervous step back. Hui raised his hands. Sir, calm down. I paid money for this repair, the man yelled, jabbing a finger at Lina. This little street girl touched my car, and now it won't start. Lina's eyes glistened, but she clenched her fists. Sir, you forced me to check it even when I said I wasn't allowed to. The part was old and leaking. Shut up, he shouted, raising his hand as if to grab her arm. Daniel moved immediately. Enough, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Everyone froze. The customer turned ready to shout again until he saw Daniel. The expensive suit, the cold, sharp eyes, the power in his posture. Well, who are you? The man stammered. Daniel stepped forward. Someone you should not speak to like that. Lina blinked, stunned. Sir, Daniel High's face turned pale. Mr. Tran, the CEO, you, um, your car earlier. Daniel ignored him. His eyes stayed on Lina. Are you all right? She nodded even though her voice was shaking. Yes, I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. He could see the fear she hid behind her brave posture. The customer tried to defend himself. She broke my pump. No, Daniel said flatly. She didn't. How do you know? Because she fixed my car today, Daniel said. Something your mechanic could not have done. She knows what she's doing, and you should apologize. The man's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around for support, but even Hai avoided his eyes. Slowly, the anger drained into embarrassment. Then, without another word, the customer climbed into his car and drove off angrily, tires screeching. Silence settled in the garage. Lina lowered her eyes. She looked small and tired, like someone who had been fighting her whole life. Hai finally spoke. Sir, I'm sorry for the trouble. She just what? Daniel asked calmly but dangerously. Did her job protected your shop's reputation? Tried to help someone. Hai swallowed hard. She didn't mean to cause. Daniel raised one hand. Stop. Hui shut his mouth immediately. Daniel turned to Lina. You shouldn't be treated like this. She shook her head quickly. It's okay. I'm used to. That's the problem, Daniel interrupted softly. You shouldn't be used to it. Lina's breath caught. Her hands tightened around the hem of her hoodie. She didn't know why this stranger cared. She didn't know why her heart suddenly beat faster. Daniel looked around the garage, the broken lights, the rusty tools. The way Hai looked annoyed rather than grateful. Is this where you want to stay? He asked her quietly. She blinked. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice, he said. No, she whispered. Some people don't. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew that feeling too well, the feeling of being trapped by circumstances, by grief, by life. He could help her. He already knew he could. But he also didn't want to overwhelm her. So he did the only thing that made sense to him now. Come with me, he said. Lina froze. What? Daniel took a breath. You helped me today. Not for money, not for attention, not because you had anything to gain. His voice softened. Let me help you now. She took a step back, confused. Sir, I don't want charity. This isn't charity, Daniel said. It's fairness. She looked at the floor. What would I even do? Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean business card, another one the same as before. You'll work for me, he said simply. The garage fell silent again. Hui stepped forward quickly. Sir, she's not Daniel, raised one eyebrow. Do you want to lose more customers today? Hui snapped his mouth shut. Lina stared at the card in Daniel's hand as if it were fire. Work for you, she whispered. At your company. Yes, he said. You have talent, real talent. You listen to engines better than some engineers I've hired. I want you to work in my service division. Training, mentorship, proper salary, proper safety. She shook her head. This is too much. No, Daniel said gently. This is where you're meant to be. Her eyes filled with tears she tried desperately to hide. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that. Nobody had ever looked at her and seen anything more than a poor girl with cheap shoes. Please, Daniel said, take this step. Let me guide you. Lina swallowed hard. What about my mother? She whispered. Daniel paused. What about her? She's sick. I'm the only one who takes care of her. Lina's voice cracked. If I work far away, I can't leave her alone. Daniel nodded slowly. Then I'll help with that too. She looked up stunned. What healthcare support? A part-time nurse? Medication? Whatever she needs. His voice was calm, steady, firm. Your mother will be safe, and you will be free to grow. A tear slipped down her cheek. Why? Why would you do this? She whispered. Daniel could have said many things: gratitude, respect, instinct. But the truth, the real truth, was deeper and harder to admit. Because someone kind once helped me, he said quietly, and I never got the chance to repay them. Lina covered her mouth, trying not to cry. The moment felt unreal, impossible, like the world had suddenly opened a door she never knew she deserved to walk through. Daniel handed her the card again. "This is your moment, Lina," he said softly. "Say yes." Her fingers shook as they touched the card. The first big turning point of her life had arrived right there in a messy garage under cheap lights. Lina took a trembling breath. "Okay," she whispered. I'll come." Daniel nodded once his eyes warmed for the first time in a long time. And just like that, her life changed. Lina arrived at Tran Global Motors the next morning, with trembling hands and a heart beating too fast. She wore her cleanest clothes, a simple white shirt and washed jeans, though both were still worn from years of use. Her backpack was old but neat. She had tied her hair back tightly, hoping it made her look more professional. The building in front of her looked impossibly tall. Glass walls shone like the surface of a calm lake. People in crisp suits walked through revolving doors, talking into wireless headsets, holding sleek laptops. Lina felt as if she had stepped into a world she was never meant to enter. Still, she walked in. Inside, the air smelled like polished floors and fresh coffee. The lobby was huge with soft lights and leather chairs. Her shoes squeaked slightly on the clean tiles. A receptionist looked up. "Hello, dear. Can I help you?" Lina clutched her backpack strap. "I'm here to see Mr. Daniel Tran. He offered me a job." The receptionist blinked. "You're Lina?" "Yes," she whispered. The woman's face changed instantly, more polite, more attentive. "Please wait here one moment." Lina nodded and stood awkwardly by a large plant. She watched workers walk by, confident steps, neat clothes, important expressions. She felt painfully out of place. But then Daniel appeared. He stepped out of the elevator wearing a clean navy suit. His hair was neat, his posture sharp. Yet when he saw Lina, something in his expression softened just a little. "Lina," he said gently, "I'm glad you came." She swallowed. "I said I would. And I trusted you." He motioned for her to follow. As they walked through the wide halls, employees stared openly. Some curious, some confused, a few judgmental. Daniel ignored all of them. Lina tried to do the same, but her cheeks burned. He led her to a large workshop area on the lower level, bright, clean, and filled with modern equipment. Engineers worked on engines lifted by mechanical arms. Computers flashed diagnostics. Tools were arranged neatly on racks. It was nothing like Hugh's garage. A woman in her 40s stepped forward. "Mr. Tran," Minha Daniel said. "This is Lina. She'll be training under your team." The woman looked Lina up and down, not unkindly, just assessing. "You fixed Mr. Tran's car, I hear." Lina blushed. "I just tightened a cable." "It takes skill to know which cable," Minha said. "Come, I'll show you around." Daniel watched as Lina followed her. She walked with small, unsure steps, but also with quiet determination. Training was hard, much harder than Lina expected. She had always learned by doing, feeling engines, listening to sounds, trusting her hands. But here everything had procedures, diagrams, safety codes, digital tools she had never seen before. She tried her best, but sometimes her hands slipped, or she forgot a step, or she mixed up technical terms. One afternoon, after she dropped a tool tray, she crouched on the floor, cheeks burning, as she picked up the scattered wrenches. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one in particular. A senior mechanic named Duke bent down to help. "Relax. Everyone drops tools on their first week." "I'm slowing everyone down," she said. "No, you're learning," he said. "Big difference." His simple words gave her breath again. But outside the training area, not everyone was kind. Some workers whispered as she passed, "That's the girl the boss brought in. She doesn't even have a degree." Why is she getting special training? Lina tried to ignore them. She focused on tightening bolts, studying manuals, practicing diagnostics. She stayed later than anyone else. Some nights she went home so tired she could barely climb the stairs. But every morning she woke up early, made tea for her mother, and whispered to herself, "You can do this." Meanwhile, Daniel kept his promise. He sent a nurse to check on Lena's mother twice a week. He arranged for medicine to be delivered monthly. He even had someone quietly fix the leaking window in their apartment. Her mother cried the first time she saw the repaired glass. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why is this man helping us?" Lina didn't know how to answer. Maybe because kindness comes back around. Her mother touched her cheek. "Take this chance, Lina. Don't be afraid of good things." Lina nodded, though her heart still trembled with uncertainty. Weeks passed and Lina began to grow into her new life. She learned quickly. Her hands became confident. Her knowledge deepened. One afternoon, when she successfully diagnosed a complicated engine fault before the digital scanner did, Min Ha clapped her on the back. "You have a gift," she said. "A real one." Lena's chest warmed. No one had ever said that to her before. Later that day, as she walked out of the workshop, she nearly bumped into Daniel in the hallway. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir," she said, stepping back. Daniel smiled softly. "No need to be sorry." He handed her a small box. "For your mother. Vitamins." Lina blinked. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said. "I wanted to." She looked up at him, eyes uncertain. "Why are you always so kind to me?" He hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Because you remind me of someone who used to help others, even when she had nothing for herself." Lina lowered her gaze. "Your wife," Daniel nodded once. Lina held the box gently. I didn't know kindness could look like this." "It can," he said. "Sometimes it just needs a place to land." Their eyes met, not as CEO and poor girl, not as boss and trainee, but as two people who carried wounds and hopes inside them. A small, quiet connection grew in that moment, a thread of understanding, something warm, fragile, and new. The connection only grew stronger in the following weeks. Sometimes Daniel visited the workshop and watched her work, pretending he had business there. Sometimes Lina brought Emma small snacks, and the child adored her instantly. One day, when Lina patiently taught Emma how to hold a small wrench, Daniel watched from the doorway. His heart tightened, not with grief this time, but with something gentler. Lina laughed softly as Emma dropped the tool. "It's okay," she said. "I dropped 100 of them before I learned." Daniel smiled. He hadn't heard laughter like that in his building for a long time. But in the shadows of this new warmness, jealousy was growing. In whispered corners, behind closed doors and jealous hearts. Someone in the company did not want a poor girl rising so fast. And Lena's happiness was about to be tested harder than she ever expected. Trouble began quietly, like a cold wind slipping under a door. At first, Lina didn't notice anything. She kept working hard, studying late, helping her mother, and learning little things about Daniel and Emma that warmed her heart more than she admitted. But others noticed her, and not kindly. The jealousy started with one person, Tara. Tara was one of the senior coordinators in the service department. She had a sharp bob haircut, expensive perfume, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She had been trying for months to get Daniel's attention, offering reports. He didn't ask for, suggesting ideas she didn't fully understand, volunteering for every meeting. Daniel barely noticed her, but he noticed Lina. Even when Lina didn't speak, even when she tried to stay invisible, Daniel always seemed aware of her. He greeted her when he entered the workshop. He asked about her mother. He paused to watch her work. He smiled, really smiled at her small jokes. Tara saw all of it, and the more she saw, the colder her heart became. "She's a nobody," Tara whispered one day to another worker. "A charity case." "Why is the CEO acting like she matters?" The worker shrugged nervously. "She's talented." "Talent isn't everything," Tara muttered. "Connections matter more." Her eyes narrowed, and she decided Lina would not stay long. The first attack came a week later. Lina arrived early as always and grabbed her apron from the locker room. When she slipped it on, a sharp pain shot up her arm. She gasped and dropped it. Inside the pocket, someone had placed a thin metal shard, a piece of broken engine casing sharp enough to cut deep. Blood trickled from her palm. She stared at it, shocked. Who would... Duke rushed over when he saw the blood. Lina. What happened? I don't know, she whispered. I just grabbed my apron. He examined the shard and frowned. Someone put this here. On purpose. Lina's heart sank. Why would they do that? Duke hesitated, then said quietly, not everyone likes how close you are to Mr. Tran. Lina's cheeks warmed with surprise. Close I'm not. I mean, he's just helping me. Some people don't see it that way, Duke said. Be careful. She nodded, shaken. But she cleaned the wound, wrapped her hand, and continued working. She didn't want to seem weak, but the cuts were only the beginning. 2 days later, a tool cart Lina had been working under suddenly slipped. She rolled out just in time as the heavy tray crashed where her head had been. Who didn't lock the wheels? Minha shouted. But Lina already knew she had locked them. Someone had unlocked them after she stepped away. That same afternoon, a customer complaint came to the department. Your trainee scratched my car. Lina was stunned. I wasn't even assigned to that car. Security footage showed a blurry figure in a hoodie walking near the vehicle, and then disappearing behind a truck. Lina couldn't prove it wasn't her. Her chest tightened with fear. It felt like the entire world was turning against her. But the worst blow came in the form of a printed report. Daniel received it during an afternoon meeting. A thick folder with Lina's name on it. Inside were accusation letters, customer complaints, and a final sheet that said, recommendation, terminate employment. Reason, dishonesty, lack of training, safety risk, and inappropriate closeness to CEO. Daniel's eyes darkened. Who prepared this? He asked quietly. The manager shifted nervously. Finally, Tara spoke. I did, sir, she said. I'm only protecting the company. She's not fit for this environment. Daniel closed the folder slowly, like he was controlling his anger by force. Call Lina, he said. In the workshop, Lina was wiping her hands when Minha called her aside. Lina, Mr. Tran wants to see you. Lina froze. Did I do something wrong? The woman squeezed her shoulder gently. Just go, and be honest. Lina walked to the elevator with shaking legs. The higher she went, the heavier her fear became. When the doors opened on the top floor, the hall felt too quiet, too sharp, too clean. Daniel stood by the window, the report folder on his desk. Her heart dropped. Sir, she whispered. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. Lina, he said, tell me the truth. Has anyone been bothering you? Her throat tightened. Sir, Tara stepped into the room, pretending surprise. She's already here. Daniel's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Mr. Tran, Tara continued loudly. I think Lina should admit her mistakes, for the good of the company. Lina looked confused. What mistakes? Tara crossed her arms. Damaged tools, unsafe behavior, customer complaints. And she paused dramatically, the inappropriate way you follow Mr. Tran around. Lina's eyes widened in shock. I don't follow him. Tara cut her off. You don't belong here. You're a street mechanic pretending to be something better. Something inside Lina cracked. I've worked hard, she said, her voice breaking. Every day. I never hurt anyone. But you insulted a customer, Tara snapped. You damaged a car. I didn't, Lina shouted, suddenly tears spilling over. Why are you lying about me? Tara smirked. Because truth matters. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. Both women jumped. Enough, he said loudly. Tara swallowed. Sir, he pointed at the report folder. Every complaint here is false. Tara blinked. Excuse me. Daniel stepped around the desk, his voice calm but deadly. I checked the security footage myself. She froze. Do you want to know what I saw? Daniel asked. Silence. Daniel walked to his desk, pressed a button, and a screen lit up displaying Tara in a hoodie scratching the customer's car. Lina gasped. Tara turned pale. Then another clip played, Tara unlocking the wheels on Lina's tool cart. Another clip of her entering the locker room before Lina arrived. Daniel turned off the screen. You tried to sabotage an innocent worker, he said coldly. You tried to injure her. You tried to destroy her career. Tara shook her head. Sir, it's not what you are fired, Daniel said, voice sharp as steel. Security will escort you out. The color drained from Tara's face. Sir, please, get out. Security entered and took her arm. She tried to pull away, but they dragged her through the door. She cried out, She doesn't deserve you. She's nothing. The door slammed shut. Silence. Lina stood trembling, tears falling down her cheeks. Daniel turned to her, slowly, his voice soft now. Lina, he said, look at me. She lifted her eyes. You did nothing wrong. She covered her face with her hands and cried harder, not from pain this time, but from relief so sharp it almost hurt. Daniel stepped forward, hesitated for just a second, and then gently placed his hands on her shaking shoulders. No one will hurt you again, he said. Not here. She sobbed quietly, leaning into his steady presence, feeling safe for the first time in a long, long time. Do you hear me? Daniel said softly. Yes, she whispered. I hear you. It was the moment when the truth finally rose above the lies. The moment Lina learned she was not alone anymore. And the moment Daniel realized he would protect her no matter what. For the first time in weeks, the workshop felt peaceful. No harsh whispers, no sharp stares, no hidden dangers lurking around corners. Tara was gone, escorted out of the building, with her cries echoing in the hallway. The air felt lighter after her departure, as if a dark cloud had finally lifted. But inside Lina's chest, the storm was still settling. She sat on a bench outside the workshop, hands clasped tightly, breathing slowly to calm herself. Her eyes were still red from crying. Her whole body felt shaky, like she had barely escaped something much worse. Footsteps approached. She looked up. Daniel stood there, not the cold, distant CEO in a suit, but a man with tired eyes full of concern. He sat beside her without saying anything at first. He let the silence breathe between them, gentle and patient. Finally he spoke. Lina, I'm sorry you had to go through all that. She shook her head. It's not your fault, but it happened under my watch, he said quietly, and that means it is my responsibility. Lina stared at her hands. I've faced things before, bad things, but this was different. I didn't understand why she hated me. Daniel hesitated because she was jealous. Lina blinked. Of me? Why, he gave a sad half smile. Because I noticed you, and she wanted to be noticed too. Lina's cheeks grew warm. She didn't know what to say. I didn't mean to cause trouble, she whispered. I just wanted to work, to learn, to take care of my mother. And you have, Daniel said gently. You've done more than that. You've shown strength most people never have to show. His voice was soft, admiring. Lina, you didn't break under pressure. You didn't abandon your honesty. And you didn't let fear destroy your kindness. He paused. That's real strength. Lina's eyes filled again, but with something different, something warm. Thank you, she whispered, for believing me. I'll always believe you, Daniel said. The days that followed were calm and healing. Daniel made a public announcement to the entire service division. Lina has been cleared of all accusations. The investigation found she is not only innocent, but highly competent. She will continue her training. She has my full trust. People who once whispered behind her back now avoided her eyes. Some apologized. Others stayed quiet, but no one dared mistreat her again. Duke said with a grin, See, I told you the truth always wins. Minha added, You earned your place here, Lina. Don't forget that. Lina held their words close to her heart. At home, her mother noticed the change the moment Lina walked through the door. You look lighter, her mother said softly, touching her cheek, as if someone finally lifted a stone off your shoulders. Lina smiled. Maybe they did. Her mother didn't know all the details, but she knew her daughter had faced something painful and survived. She hugged Lina gently, proud and relieved. Meanwhile, Emma was completely unaware of the tension that had passed. She only saw Lina as someone she adored. Lina Emma cried each evening when Lina visited. Come see the picture I drew. Lina sat with her, teaching her about engines, helping her color wheels and headlights. Emma laughed easily, her presence warm and bright. One afternoon, Lina asked, "How are your school friends?" Emma pouted. "They're okay, but they're not as fun as you." Lina laughed softly. "I'm not that fun." "Yes, you are," Emma insisted. Daniel watched them from the doorway, expression thoughtful and warm. Something in his heart softened more each day. Lina fit into his world so naturally, not with money, not with status, but with kindness. And he realized how long it had been since his home felt this alive. One evening, as the sun set orange behind the city skyline, Daniel called Lina to the garden behind his house. It was a quiet place, Hannah's old garden, now gently cared for by the groundskeeper. Pink flowers lined the walkway. Lina looked nervous. "Sir, why did you call me here?" Daniel's voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because there's something I need to tell you." She held her breath. He walked to one of the flower beds and touched a small wooden marker. "My wife loved these flowers. She planted them the year Emma was born." Lina stepped closer, respectful, listening. Daniel continued, "After she passed away, I didn't think I would ever feel anything warm again. I didn't think I deserved happiness. I didn't think I could open my heart to anyone." Lina's chest ached softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "You didn't have to know," Daniel said. He turned toward her eyes, sincere and vulnerable. "But somehow, you opened a part of me I thought was dead." Lina's breath caught. Daniel took a small step closer. "You came into my life quietly, gently. You helped without asking for anything. You cared about people you didn't have to care about, including me." His voice trembled slightly. "And that changed something in me, Lina." She felt her heart beating painfully fast. "I don't want to cross any lines," Daniel said softly. "And I don't want to make you uncomfortable. So I need to ask," he swallowed, "do you want to stay in my life? Not just as an employee, not just as someone I help?" Lina's eyes filled with shallow tears. Daniel's next words came slowly, like he was afraid of breaking the world around them. "I want you to stay because you matter to me. Because I care about you." The last four words hung in the air like trembling light. Lina covered her mouth gently, tears slipping down. She had never imagined anyone, especially someone like him, would say such words to her. She never believed she deserved them. "I," she whispered, voice breaking, "I don't know if I'm worthy." Daniel stepped closer, gently taking her trembling hands. "You are," he said. "More than you know." The touch steadied her. She looked into his eyes, not as a poor girl, not as a trainee, but as someone finally seen and valued. "I want to stay," she finally breathed. "Not because you're a CEO, not because you helped me, but because you make me feel safe and seen." Daniel exhaled sharply, relief washing over his face. He pulled her into a gentle embrace, warm, careful, full of unspoken promises. Lina rested her forehead on his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and real. From a roadside engine, to a broken girl with a wounded heart, to a grieving man learning to feel again. Their lives had intertwined, and now they were beginning a new chapter together. A chapter built not on charity or fear or power, but on trust, healing, and the first quiet shape of love. As the sky deepened into evening and Emma ran outside calling their names, the three of them stood together in the fading light, a small, fragile, beautiful new beginning, one that no one, not even a jealous coworker, could ever break again. The next months felt like a gentle sunrise, slow, warm, and full of new colors. Lina moved into a safer apartment close to her mother. Daniel arranged the paperwork, but only after Lina agreed, and only with her full permission. Her mother received steady medical care, and for the first time in years, she could walk short distances without pain. She often sat by the window smiling as sunlight poured in. Meanwhile, Lena's life at Tran Global Motors changed in ways she never expected. Her confidence grew, her skills sharpened, her presence became valued, not questioned. Co-workers who once doubted her now greeted her with respect. Duke joked that she could diagnose an engine just by hearing it breathe. Minha trusted her with more complex tasks and even invited her to join a special training program reserved for top technicians. But the biggest change was in Daniel and Emma's lives. Every weekend, Lina came to the Tran home. She cooked simple meals with Emma, teaching her how to wash, rice-pick vegetables, and crack eggs without dropping the shells. Emma adored every moment. Lina, she said one day while stirring soup, "Can you stay forever?" Lina laughed softly, brushing a curl from Emma's face. "I'll stay as long as you want me to." Emma grinned, then ran off to show Daniel her soup. Daniel watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed loosely, a soft smile touching his lips. The house had been silent for so long. Now it felt like a home again, filled with footsteps, laughter, and gentle warmth. Later that evening, as Lina cleaned the dishes, Daniel stepped beside her. "Lina." She looked up, wiping her hands. Yes, he exhaled as if gathering courage. "You don't have to keep calling me, sir, you know." Her cheeks warmed. "It's a habit." He smiled faintly. "Break it." She laughed softly. "Okay, Daniel." Something in his eyes softened even further. He took her hand slowly, making sure she was comfortable. When she didn't pull away, he held it more firmly, their fingers lacing together. The moment felt delicate and full, like standing at the edge of something beautiful. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For fixing my car and my life." Lina felt tears form. "You fixed mine too." And together they understood something without needing to say it out loud. This was no longer just kindness, no longer just gratitude. It was love, simple and real. Time passed, and with it came a new steadiness. Lina completed her training and became an official technician, one of the youngest in the company. She still worked hard, still carried her old kindness, still helped people without expecting anything in return. But now she also stood tall, sure of her worth. Daniel, who once lived behind walls of grief, now found joy in small things. Emma's laughter dinner with Lina, quiet drives through the city where she sat beside him, smiling out the window. Their lives blended gently, naturally. One evening, Daniel took Lina and Emma to the same roadside where their paths first crossed. The sky was filled with orange light, and cars passed slowly on the smooth pavement. "This is where everything changed," Daniel said quietly. Lina nodded. "Yes." Emma held both their hands. "This is where you fixed Daddy's car." And then Daddy's heart. Lina and Daniel both laughed softly, and Emma giggled at her own joke. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel turned to Lina and took her hands. "Stay with us," he said, his voice steady and warm. "Not just today, not just tomorrow." He paused. "Stay in our lives. Be part of our family." Lina's breath trembled. Tears shone in her eyes. "I want that," she whispered. "More than anything." He pulled her close, and Emma wrapped her arms around them both. Three hearts, one new beginning, a family built on kindness, trust, and healing. The world around them softened into quiet evening light, and for the first time in a long time, all three of them felt safe, truly safe. Sometimes the people who seem the smallest are carrying the biggest hearts. Sometimes the ones who have nothing still give everything. And sometimes one simple act like helping on the roadside can change a destiny. We should never look down on someone because of their clothes, their home, or their bank account. Real strength is not power or money. Real strength is kindness. Blessings often come from the most unexpected places and often from the people we least expect. What about you? Have you ever helped a stranger and later realized it meant more than you thought? Tell us your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories just like this one. Your support helps us bring more inspiring tales to life. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.